World Energy Day is a celebration that happens every year towards the end of the year in October, where we get to celebrate all the gains that we have achieved in the world of energy. And so we are gearing up towards that by having these webinars. And so this morning, I would like us to just be grateful for all the things that have happened. We're in the midst of a pandemic all over the world. Last year, right now, we never would have thought we would have been here. And so it's a great pleasure that we are here and we are healthy. And so I'll ask you to take a moment just to be grateful for the things that are in your life. Take a moment of gratitude. Be grateful for life, to be grateful for an opportunity to gather here with other energy professionals. Just a moment. What are the 3 things that you're grateful for? And you can think about those. As we move to the exciting, wonderful day that we have packed for you, we have exciting speakers here today. We have 3 speakers, and then we will have an engaging breakout session, and then we will come back and discuss all the things that we had discussed in the breakouts. And so let's kick off the day by having an address from one of our organizers. This forum is hosted by e-innovators in partnership with Area Finergy. And we will start off with a welcome note from one of our own, Matthew Okante from Area Finergy. Kindly welcome us and give us a few words, Matthew.
Hello, Dinette. Hi, everyone. It's a great pleasure to attend to that webinar with all of you for that 3rd webinar. We already had some very insightful discussion on how to manage our business run during the COVID-19 containment period formally. We also explored in another webinar what are the key steps in driving the energy sector back to normal. So a lot of great points were brought forward. Now, we are all energy professionals. We all have experienced that during the past decades, things have moved in the direction of more renewable energy and more energy efficiency. So we can feel in our business that the demand for energy efficiency and the need for accessible renewable energy have been unstoppable in this past decade. Now, new technologies make it possible for renewable energy to compete and to overpass non-renewable energy. This is the case, of course, for energy generation equipment, but also for all other energy efficiency technologies and appliances. They catalyze each other, they add with each other, and with for instance, with the continuous drop in the cost of batteries, it's now possible to predict the exact moment when all the market will be either equipping in batteries or already equipped. So this is a very big trend. Now, of course, for the last 4 months, we all had to face critical issues. This was not business as usual. We had to think about how to reorganize our businesses, how not to accumulate delays, how to save projects, how to accommodate customers, how to manage suppliers. We all had to find innovative ways to tackle this coronavirus stuff. But despite this, well, of course, this was a short-term concern, and we knew that. Now the underlying basis which drives the growth of the energy sector, this hasn't changed. The C&I space, especially in Africa, will be needing more energy, more stable energy, cleaner and cheaper energy. And there are solutions for that. So that's just a fact. Of course, the COVID will change much things. I hope all of us here will manage to find out exactly what will change here during that webinar. But there are some long-run tendencies that are stronger than the pandemic. This is the same thing for a disease, actually. Like the COVID-19 did not make all of the diseases disappear, and all the doctors, well, my doctor keep on saying me, well, be careful, please, because other health conditions did not just disappear. And so we need not to be blinded by COVID-19. I think this is also true for energy sector, except that all of us, we are the doctor, who need to emphasize that there are some energy investments that are hardly avoidable no matter the pandemics. So now it's up to us to share our views on what exactly we change and what are the issues of energy efficiency and renewable energy, how as energy professionals we will manage that turning point in the energy sector for the CNI space. So thank you very much for attending. Thank you for keeping engaged in that conversation. We need to share our experience with each other to get a sense of where we need to be heading, all of us as energy professionals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. I just feel like clapping for that address. You have really put a perspective into what we are going through at the moment, and what you said about, the pandemic does not negate all other things that we have to deal with. And especially in the energy sector, we have the ambassadors of clean energy and renewable energy, and to keep reminding people that beyond the pandemic, there are other things that we have to deal with, and energy is one of them. So thank you very much, Matthew, for that address and for welcoming us here. As any group, we will need to have some ground rules. In any meeting, we need to have some ground rules so that we have courtesy, respect, and dignity as we carry on with our activities. And so I will ask Moses Waihora to please give us the ground rules for this session so that we are able to maintain these rules as we move forward. Moses, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much, Lynette. So the ground rules are what we will need in order for us to have a smooth meeting. Try and ensure that you have at least 1 GB of data for you to have good connectivity, or make sure that you are in a place with stable Wi-Fi. Kindly avoid disruptions in your background and in producing noise by identifying a quiet space. The meeting shall be recorded for everyone that shall participate in the meeting. Therefore, if you are a role taker, like for example, a speaker, and are uncomfortable being recorded for your session, kindly let me know by messaging me on private chat. And this meeting's recording shall be sent to each participant after the meeting is done. If you log in with 2 devices, it will cause an echo. Therefore, try to stay logged in with one. Kindly note that all are muted, and unmuting shall only be done when you are speaking and when you are called upon. The chat function, I think, is available, but it shall be disabled and only availed when the speakers are in session for questions and comments. You are free to raise a hand on video or on your participants list for you to be picked to ask a question or make a contribution. Maintain a good meeting etiquette throughout the meeting. Back to you, Lynette.
Thank you very much, Moses, for those ground rules. It's very important that when we come together, we are able to be guided by some principles. Is what makes society run. And here, those are our ground rules. We ask kindly that you are within the ground rules. And so let's move to our exciting part of this webinar. What is the theme of our webinar today? The theme today is optimizing energy efficiency and renewable energy for commercial and industrial clients. The main things that we are looking at today are energy efficiency and renewable energy. And I'm sure that each of you has some thoughts on these areas. But before you share your thoughts, we will listen to our powerful speakers who have prepared their presentations for us, and they will be able to share what their thoughts are. And then we will be able to engage on these areas. And so if you need to look at the past World Energy Day, we have the videos on our YouTube channel, on Innovators YouTube channel, and we also have the reports on World Energy Day website, on the worldenergyday.net website, if you need to look at the past ones. And so here we'll also come out with the reports on our topic for today, and we'll be able to share the recording here. We also welcome everyone who is live on Facebook. We see you and we acknowledge you. And so to our exciting part of the presentation, we'll begin with our first speaker. Our first speaker is Lisa Reynolds. Lisa is a great friend of Innovators and a great friend of Area Finergy and a great friend of the World Energy Day Forum. Lisa is the Executive Director of Green Building Design Group in South Africa. She has had over 16 years of experience in energy efficiency, insulation, and interior buildings. She has a CEM since 2005 and has an MBA from the University of Hull. She sits on many boards, many boards, including that of the South African Energy Efficiency Confederation. And she has been involved in creating many policies and standards that govern energy efficiency and building codes. And she's here today to speak to us about optimizing energy efficiency for business success. Welcome, Lisa. You may go ahead and address us. We are really eagerly waiting to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Lynette. And I must just tell you, it feels a little bit like I'm coming home, joining you guys again. I believe in the whole being safe with the COVID thing, but I'm really missing not being there personally. I think that would be the best, because I love Kenya. I love, as I say, it would be like coming home. I just need to point out that I've actually changed jobs in between. I should have updated my bio. I'm now CEO of the Green Building Council for South Africa. So that's my latest adventure since the beginning of June. So I didn't prepare a PowerPoint presentation because I thought, no, I'm not going to do death by PowerPoint. But, you know, when we look at energy efficiency and the commercial viability of energy efficiency, it always makes sense. It always makes business sense, because the thing is, whatever intervention you put in for energy efficiency has payback. But I'd like to maybe take a step back first and say, in this time of COVID and in time of the lockdown, we can see throughout the world examples of that human impact is the greatest cause of the excess carbon and excess greenhouse gases. Because obviously, as the world's been in lockdown, the world is actually, the earth has actually healed somewhat. And we can see that, one, it's real version that if we save energy, we are going to save on the carbon. We're going to decrease the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So now, as we come out of lockdown, and I'm not sure where Kenya is with it, but in South Africa, we are slowly going back to work. And the big push, I believe, is to look at using energy efficiently and looking at what we like to call a green recovery. So as we recover out of COVID, as we recover out of lockdown, and we have to get our economy back in place, we have to get people working. So we have to have this economic recovery, but let's link the economic recovery to a green recovery. Let's not go back to our old business as usual. Now, I can say to you, okay, put in this XYZ energy efficiency measures it has payback. Everybody knows this, but why doesn't everybody do it? So I like to liken energy efficiency to, say, water efficiency. If you had a commercial business, if you had a plant, a factory, if you have a building, when you looked at your water consumption, wouldn't you first check, before you put any water efficiency measures in, wouldn't you first check if there is a leak somewhere? So when you're doing a water efficiency program in your buildings, in your factory, you first check, where is water leaking out of? Why don't we have the same approach with energy? Before we look at renewable energy, before we look at ways of generating alternative energy, which is good, I'm not saying it's not good, why don't we first look where the energy is leaking out of the business? You know, we would automatically do it with water, but we don't automatically do it with energy. And that's where I think that, you know, because I always say, we say that energy from the sun is free, but unfortunately, PV panels and backup batteries are not. So why not first right-size the energy use of your building, the energy use of your factory, before you start generation, before you even look at renewable generation? And as I say, it's similar to saying, before I use borehole water, I'm going to make sure that there's no leak. And I think that's sort of the approach we need to take with energy efficiency. Okay, fine, energy leakage is more difficult to find than water leakage, but it's still doable. And I mean, there's a lot of big proponent, as Lynette said, I've sat on many committees. I'm a big proponent of the ISO 50001, the energy management system, because it is also just understanding the energy that you use inside your business, and then saying, okay, where does it make sense to put the energy efficiency interventions? And the beauty of energy efficiency interventions is that if you analyze your whole, say you take your whole factory, your whole plant, you analyze it, see where the energy leakages are. You can put one intervention in that gives you the best payback. And from those savings, you can look at doing the next one. So again, it's not about all or nothing. It's also about a managed approach to energy efficiency. And as the one gives you savings, you can pay for the next one, and so on. So it's almost you putting in something that pays itself back, and then pays for new energy efficiency and pays itself back again. So, because as I say, I can say to you, if you save X kilowatt hours, you're going to save X amount of money. Everybody knows this, but you know, it has to have another viewpoint, because not everybody's buying into it. And I think in Kenya specifically, energy is quite expensive. It should be a no-brainer, but it's not always a no-brainer. And I think the other thing is also to be the guide to businesses to find energy efficiency. And as I said, that's why I look at an energy management system. Helps you analyze the energy that's used in your plant. And once you know where the biggest energy use is and the knock-on effect of an intervention there, it just makes more sense that you do the one side, get payback, pays for the next intervention. So it really, really does make energy, it makes business sense. But I think the big thing with a lot of business owners is they're not always sure how to do it. And that's where a lot of us come in, is to also give a guide to how to do it. And that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you very much, Lisa. What a short and sweet presentation from you there. And we have been able to take out some very important points. I loved how you linked the economic recovery to the green recovery. We need to think about getting back into the economy in a greener way.
Yes.
And energy efficiency is the way to go. And so I'll ask all our participants to note all the questions that they have for Lisa, And we'll have a Q&A session right at the end after we have our three speakers, have spoken. And so Lisa will pose the questions to you after all our speakers have spoken. And thank you very much for honoring us with that presentation.
Thank
so
you.
We'll move to our second speaker of the day. Our second speaker of the day is Mark Hankins. Mark is truly a renewable energy enthusiast at heart. His journey with renewables began in the early 80s when he taught in a small remote school in Kenya. And during this period, he installed 4 solar systems in the off-grid schools. And he went on ahead to teach technicians on how to install PV systems, and they were able to do that to install hundreds of systems in the next 2 years. And so he's an enthusiast and an African at heart. He's worked in East and Southern Africa for the last 20 years in rural electrification and renewable energy. Mark is the director and CEO of African Solar Design, and he's also a renewable energy project advisor at the GEP Invest Finance Catalyst. He has authored 4 books and numerous papers on solar PV and rural energy services. As you can see, Mark here is an expert in renewable energy. And Mark will be speaking to us on the topic of tapping into renewable energy for business use. This is both commercial and industrial. Mark, welcome to address us. We are really eagerly waiting to hear from you.
Thank you. Should I share my screen?
Yes, Moses, could you kindly make him a co-host?
Okay, Ruth Carol, our host, kindly make Mark a co-host.
It's good to be here. You can see this. I'm not really where that picture is. That's Cornbury. I'm coming from Kilimani in Nairobi, but I really thanks for inviting me. So today I'm going to try and do a 10-minute
Okay, Mark, I have enabled screen share. Okay.
Okay.
You can be able to share the screen.
All right. Am I on?
Yes, we can see
you, Mark.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the coming impacts of renewables on business in East Africa, and so I'm gonna go pretty quickly. Let me see if I can. So we already had an introduction, so I'm not going to add anything else to the introduction. I would like to say that I'm currently a consultant advisor to Get Invest Finance Catalyst team. So if you have a business and you need support, go to Get Invest, and we provide free advisory services. So do look up Get Invest, and we help companies close the gap between identifying funds and getting the business started. I'm also a father and a musician and a committed environmentalist. Let me see if I can. So what I wanted to talk about was where is renewable energy going? So very briefly, when we look at Kenya, Kenya doesn't get enough credit for having a very green grid. I think right now we're pretty close, 85–90% green grids. It started with the hydro projects on the Tana River, and there's 5 dams cascading down, and they bring several hundred of megawatts. But after that, Kenya developed geothermal. Kenya is in one of the top 5 countries in the world in geothermal. So it's really exciting to be in Kenya, where is a global leader in geothermal. And so geothermal has now passed hydro in Kenya as the #1 source of power on the grid. So most recently, last year, we added 300 megawatts of electricity from wind in Turkana, which is the largest sub-Sahara wind project. So suddenly we add wind. This is a great wind resource. It's one of the most consistent wind resources on the African continent, if not the world. And then we have Garissa Solar that came on a year, two ago with 60 megawatts of solar. So adding solar. This year we're going to see Kipeto Wind come on. If you go to Ngong Hills, you can actually see the 20 wind generators are up. And so we've got Kipeto wind bringing on 60 more megawatts of wind. And adding to that, we have more than 50 megawatts of embedded solar in Kenya already, which is a leader for non-South Africa, sub-Sahara Africa. And that's not counted in the Kenya energy statistics, but there are probably 500 projects over 100 kilowatts in Kenya. And this has happened in the last 3 or 4 years. So we have multiple technologies, we have public and private financing, and we have a fairly strong, you can say what you like about it, but we have a fairly strong power company that operates on a cost-covering basis. So is Kenya green by luck or by planning? I think there's a little bit of both, but Kenya is at a really good starting point for renewable energies. So where are renewables going to go? I want to first talk about solar, because solar is the leader, and it will continue to be the leader. The green future in Kenya, that when she mentioned that I was a pioneer in the 80s, we envisioned that we would have a green future, and we wanted to see a green future, but it's taken a lot longer to arrive. But it's here now, and green energy is now a reality, and it's something that you can plan a career in. So the green future is here. And as an environmentalist, I'm committed to the belief that the future is not petroleum, the future is not coal, and I don't even think the future is natural gas. I think that all of the green renewable energy technologies can provide a stable power, as they're already doing in Kenya for the grid. So we need to envision a future that kind of hooks into the Green New Deal of the globe. So renewable energy procurement by large companies and particularly solar has risen dramatically since 2005. We've seen in 2010, 2011, UNEP put in the first grid-connected solar project in Kenya. It was about 0.5 megawatt. And since then, we've seen well over 50 megawatts installed. We put in, ASD put in the second system, which was a 60 kilowatt system in SOS, Children's Village. But now, in the top 8,000 companies in Kenya, between 5 and 10% of them have installed embedded solar or solar combined with other power systems on their premises. So this is when we see that solar is now embedded solar is now accounting for almost 5% of the capacity of the Kenya grid. This is a huge change, and it's happened in a very short time. But looking at the other end of it, 20% of rural East Africans have a solar system in their house right now. So again, in 10, 15 years, we've gone from almost zero solar to a population where 20% of the population actually has a solar system off grid. The actual importance of PV is greatly underestimated by policymakers, and they don't give it the credit. And what you, our group here, our young people here, we need to really push our policymakers to give energy efficiency and solar more credit, because it's playing an increasingly important role. It's really, and it's going to grow more and more. And finally, when we talk about off-grid solar, we've seen more than $1 billion invested in off-grid solar in the last 2 years, and we have a lot of investment coming into the solar sector. So you can divide the solar sector into small off-grid, PICO solar home systems. We have C&I, which is the type of commercial and industrial systems. Williamson T has 1 megawatt. Strathmore, well, I think that Strathmore is actually a PPA, but hundreds of industries have solar arrays on their sites. Then we have mini grids, and mini grids technically are a great solution for off-grid energy. Our regulatory system has not really caught up with the technology of mini grids. So the technology is fine. The regulatory structure, the ability of private sector to come in and supply power hasn't really caught up with the technology. And then we have PPAs. We've got maybe 5 or 10 solar projects in planning right now. I'm working with one as an advisor, but we will have, I think in the next 3 or 4 years, we'll see five solar projects above 10 megawatts in Kenya, in addition to Garissa. So there are a lot of opportunities, but most of the PV energy capacity thus far in Kenya has been purchased by private companies and households. And thousands of people are employed in the industry. I don't think we've done a very good assessment of the solar industry in this country yet, and I think we need to. But I'm sure that there's thousands of people employed. Not all of them are full-time, but there's quite a few job opportunities. So if you're looking to for a future, solar has actually stepped to the front. Let's have a look at the other renewables. The other renewables, they're not growing as fast. Well, and there's reasons for that. Wind there's specific locations where you can use wind. So on the top of the Rift Valley, at the coast, in the north of the country. So you can't use wind everywhere, and you can't put a wind generator in your backyard. And so wind is mostly finding its niche in supply of large-scale PPA projects. There are a lot of companies that tried to get started in wind. If you know PowerGen, the mini grid company, they started off as WindGen, and they got out of wind because wind had brought them problems. I'll come back to that. So wind is a viable renewable energy technology, but the niche that it's finding is mostly large PPA projects. Hydro, a little bit like wind, specific locations, there has to be a stream. It's mostly found its niche in PPA projects, but it has a number of community applications. And again, if you can get around the regulatory barriers, there are a lot of sites in Kenya where small scale hydro makes sense, and where hydro can feed directly to applications. And it's a great technology because it's a firm source of energy. So the tea sector is one area which has already taken up hydro in a lot of locations. Geothermal, mostly large-scale PPA projects. You can't really put up a small geothermal electricity generation project. So geothermal is going large scale. So if you want to get in geothermal, you're going to have to go with a large company that's doing large geothermal projects. There are thermal applications, but I'm focusing in this talk on electricity. And then biomass, there are specific applications. You can generate electricity from biomass, even though most of the biomass applications are direct thermal. And there's a limited supply of biomass in Kenya. We aren't going to be burning wood because there's not enough forests really to be doing a lot of wood energy. And the wood waste, it's there. There's biomass in the sugar sector. There's biomass in the forestry sector. And there's biomass in the various farming technologies, there's biomass supplies there. So biomass and biogas, there are specific applications, but I would say it's pretty niche. And so if you look on the right side, it depends on the technology maturity, it depends on the resource, it depends on the size of the opportunity, and what's limiting these other applications, especially in the niche markets, is the size of the opportunity and then the cost. And so you need to have pretty deep pockets to do a wind, hydro, or geothermal project. Biomass and biogas have specific, and they are more mature than the others. But if you want to get into a business, the argument is that there's a lot more opportunities in PV, and all of these others are niche, and you really need to think about how you're going to set up the business. So on my last slide, I want to talk about if you're thinking about getting in the renewable energy business and where you want to go and what technology you want to focus on, I think there's some things you need to think about when you're looking for the direction, or if you're a business leader and you want to set up a new company, where is the renewable energy business going to go? And I think these are some of the things that I would suggest we think about. Renewable energies are going to play an increasing role in energy supply and consumer choice. I'll say it here, I was happy that Lamu coal did not succeed, and I don't think it succeeded. I think the environmentalists won, and I think Kenya Power wouldn't have been able to take an extra 1,000 megawatts from Lamu. So we're not going to see that coal. We're going to see renewables coming in, and we're going to see it coming in at different levels. And I think batteries, control technologies, and the electric car are going to factor into business development. I'll come back to that. And I think middle-class customers that you can reach out to directly, as well as business, will become more important. And my question and my challenge is, will environmentalism drive consumer change in Africa like it has in Europe and Japan and the States? We still don't have a green consumer base, and that really is something that we need to develop to get people thinking about green technologies. But let's think about the pieces of where business is going. And I think battery storage is really going to be important. Lithium ion batteries, lead acid carbon batteries, other battery technologies. Once we can store battery energy cheaply, and this is going to be a game changer, then we, and especially at the household level, small business level, we don't necessarily need to connect to the grid. Right now, the expensive part of a solar system isn't the panels, it's the batteries. So once we get the cost of storage down, and it's been coming down very rapidly, then we're going to see the cost of the renewable, small scale renewable is going to greatly expand. Secondly, we have grid connectivity and net metering. We need to lobby for that, because right now, without being able to put your electricity on the grid and to get compensated for it, putting a solar on your small business or on your house doesn't make sense. You need to have net metering, and that's been demonstrated in other countries. Electric cars. electric cars are going to be a really important part of the development of renewables, because the more electric cars we have that are being charged by electricity, the more of a load that can suck up the renewables that are variable. So if we want to suck up the solar load during the day when there's excess power, or we want to suck up that wind power at 3 a.m., we want to have electric cars. So we need to start thinking about converting our vehicle fleet from petroleum to electric, and it's coming. It's coming. We've already reached 2% of car sales globally are electric now. So we've reached 2% pretty rapidly, and we need to start thinking about that. So the other points to think about is the size of the package. Are we going for 100 kilowatt, 100 megawatt, or 1 kilowatt solar systems? So where is your business targeting? What's the control technology? There are very sophisticated control technologies out there. This is a really important part of any business and system. Type of customer, who are you targeting? Are you targeting the wananchi? Are you targeting the middle class? Are you targeting large businesses? Are you targeting the government and the power company, PPA? So this is something you need to think about. And COPA is targeting the rural poor. I think we need to start thinking about how we target the middle class in Kenya. And then the future of the utility, Kenya Power is not doing very well. You saw that they're in the Business Daily the day before yesterday that the government said that they might call a force majeure to some of the PPA agreements. So what's the future of Kenya Power? The business of electricity is changing. So there is an uncertainty for all utilities, not just in Kenya. And then investments. Where you're going to get your investments from? The investment, there is more money becoming available for renewables. You need to figure out how to connect with those. So those are the trends that I think that the main trends that renewable energy companies need to be thinking about. And I've exhausted my 10 minutes, so that's my challenge for discussion for today.
Wow.
I'll end there.
Thank you so much, Mark. You have given us such a great overview of the renewable energy in Kenya. And more importantly, you have given us what are the trends we need to think about right now. So if you're a person who is thinking about going into renewable or specifically solar energy provision, there are some thoughts to think about from Mark's presentation. Thank you very much, Mark, for that wonderful presentation. And so I'll ask that people engage on the chat. If you have any questions, please post them there. We will go on to our third speaker, and once our third speaker speaks, we will look at your questions and address your questions. So please stay with us, keep writing down those questions and keep them in mind, and we will cover them once our third speaker has spoken. And so on to our third speaker. Our third speaker is Sylvester Makaka. You might have seen our third speaker on TV, because he's called on different interviews where he gives advisory on energy in the manufacturing sector. Sylvester is the Executive Officer and Senior Energy Advisor at Kenya Association of Manufacturers. He's a certified energy manager with vast experience in industrial energy efficiency programs and energy advocacy, power tariffs, and power purchase agreements. He has vast experience also in industrial power and energy systems and energy management, with experience spanning over 25 years in the manufacturing sector. And today, Sylvester will provide us with some specific energy solutions that we can adopt for commercial and industrial clients. Welcome, Sylvester Makaka. we are eagerly waiting to hear what you have to say to us.
Good morning to the team in the room and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Sylvester.
Delighted to be here today and speak to these great panelists and audience on energy and energy efficiency. I'll not go into self-introduction, but I'll just say that we run a center popularly known as the Center for Energy Efficiency and Conservation, which is a national program domiciled at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. And Kenya Association of Manufacturers is a representative for what we call business membership association that speaks for the manufacturing fraternity in Kenya. And so our role as the energy desk is to advise industry on emerging trends, emerging technologies, and drive the energy efficiency agenda across the manufacturing value chain. Having said that, let me say that we live in very interesting time. Interesting in the sense that the COVID-19 has brought in some awakening and some challenges, but there are also positive sides to look at. And we saw the oil prices crumple or crash, and that sent signals through the energy professional fraternity as to whether the competition is getting stiffer. Competition for renewables, competition for fuel substitution, whether it's becoming stiffer now that the oil prices are crashing. But we've also had some good news from solar panel manufacturers telling us that a breakthrough is been attained to do a 500 watt peak modules that will in essence give us a higher yield by a specific area. And those are good things really. And we looking to see how then, as Lisa mentioned, how the recovery will shape up. But signals are real that efficiency will be at the top of the recovery strategy post-COVID. Kenya is also at a very interesting time. We've just announced that we are setting up special economic zone for manufacturing within the greater geothermal territory, the Naivasha special economic zone. And we're looking at how the geothermal steam, after the power generation, what will happen with it? Will it be condensed and then re-injected into the earth for the cycle? Or will we be looking at extracting maximum value, energy value from the geothermal steam? So we're looking forward to seeing how the special economic zone around Naivasha, around the geothermal being the real driver of setting up these special economic zones within the Naivasha zone, how we can then extract full value energy terms from the geothermal steam. I know the extraction, the primary steam from the wells is at temperatures of 250 degrees Celsius to 350. And that means that after generation, you could still be having temperatures of 150, 200, 180. What value can we extract from this? And what industries can be supported? Of course, we know that the textile, the tea sector, and all those that require steam and hot systems can really capitalize on this opportunity and see what is the value of geothermal steam to spur or reduce their cost of manufacturing if they are setting up within this area. From where I sit, we've been conducting or championing the energy efficiency program across manufacturing and indeed all the commercial sector. What has emerged is that as we rely mostly on the grid has got its own challenges and real challenges because it's a single grid. The network doesn't always give the manufacturer what he wants. Reliability is not predictable. And so many manufacturers have had to invest in their own power generation, mostly the diesel-based, to come in when grid fails. What does that say? It tells you that the energy numbers we report in the general statistics on power consumption is mostly numbers from the utility operator. And so we are not adequately capturing generation that is from other sources. So it means that manufacturers could be really generating from diesel, and that cost is borne only by the manufacturer, and nobody else knows about how much or how much was generated from this. But we've also seen a great interest expressed in the solar space. Solar being an intermittent source, we cannot for sure as manufacturers say that solar will provide 100% of our energy needs, however big the installation may be. So this puts solar in a position of dependency. And where does it depend for stability? Then it depends on the grid. So as long as the grid is unstable, then solar becomes equally unstable. And that then brings in the question of whether storage will mitigate the problem of intermittency, both in grid and in solar. And that then brings in the integration of solar, grid, and any other source that may be available. Because what industry really suffers most is intermittency of power supply that in ordinary view will seem to be too short an interruption, but in real sense has enormous consequences on the cost of production, really enormous, especially in the large manufacturing like cement sector and steel smelting plants. An interruption of 1 minute, 1 second, or whatever magnitude hits so hard where it hurts, because then the thermal energy that is required to ramp up the plant back to optimal operation is enormous. So solar, as we look at it, it is a good solution, but needs a lot of support from other systems. And we are looking at whether battery storage will be the solution. Kenya also, and in this case manufacturing, uses a lot of coal and other thermal systems, petroleum, to fire up the boilers and run the cement kilns. And we're looking at a viable fuel substitution. Of course, we are under a logging ban where you cannot just harvest forest for the purpose of firewood or your fuel needs. And that has put a lot of pressure on what alternatives are available to manufacturers. And I see the tea sector suffering. I see across the value chain, across the manufacturing chain, all the manufacturers with fuel-fired boilers and wood-fired boilers are really suffering. And with the interruption in the supply chain of occasioned by the COVID, it means that even where you thought that there is reliability in the supply chain, we're likely to see disruptions here and there. And then where does this leave the manufacturer? So we're looking at social solutions, local solutions that will create a full value chain from production to consumption of fuel substitutes. And fuel substitutes is basically looking at how do we grow support system on commercial biomass. Is there land? Are there partners? Then we're looking at the agricultural, the fallow agricultural land that is not really in use, but not also in competition with food. So that we look at a solution where on one hand, we are responding to fuel needs, and on the other hand, we are not competing with food production. So then we'll be looking at which areas will suit the growing of commercial biomass to support the fuel system, the fuel substitution agenda. And we've seen very many manufacturers take up technologies, especially in boiler technologies that will accommodate or make use of alternative fuels. When you don't have, say, coal, you can use then the biomass. When you don't have the biomass, you can still switch it to use petroleum fuel. And all this is something that our energy efficiency program is looking into to see how do we make then industry flexible so that when one fuel's value chain collapses or is in problems, then you are able to switch quickly without adverse impact on your processes. Having talked about the biomass space and the geothermal, we are looking at the whole spectrum around energy efficiency. Kenya, of course, is in the process or has actually institutionalized what we call the minimum energy performance standards. And the first phase of this looked at the commercial motors, industrial motors, looked at the refrigeration and air conditioning. And of course, we are now in the process of looking at the lighting generally to see how fast we move without what we popularly call as MEPS, the minimum energy performance standards, and institutionalize across the value chain so that as manufacturers look into the future, they are re-engineering their systems, they are redesigning their systems with the future of technology and with a standard to guide them so that we don't end up in 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, or 20 years from now, in a worse scenario than we were 5 years or 10 years ago. Of course, the industrialization of Africa and especially Kenya has evolved. And that evolution was slow in adopting modern and more efficient technologies. This is the time now that we are looking at the future of manufacturing with modern technology, with green and more efficient technologies. We still haven't cracked the natural gas for East Africa yet. Although the statistics show that there is gas in Tanzania, there is gas all over around us, we haven't really come up with an infrastructural mechanism to have natural gas reach manufacturing cheaply. And that means that it remains on the discussion table. The solution around natural gas remains on the natural table. As to when it will come is a political or an economics decision, but it also looks at the entire region, how that will manifest itself. But if gas were to arrive in Kenya, say at the coast of Mombasa, what will be the transformation? What will it then be substituting? Will it be substituting oil? Will it be substituting coal? Or will it be substituting general heating? And how do we get this gas across from the coast to the hinterland? Where do we need it most? So those are the questions we are still grappling on, how to bring in a gas system. But of course, it's still a discussion at the table. We've been looking at so many other areas of how to help industry really emerge from the COVID pandemic and its consequences. And we have had really what we would call one-on-one or industry discussions. And there's no question really as to whether we should drop our agenda on climate change and the mitigation. It's no brainer. Everybody has noted, or it's been reported that the CO2 emission levels have come down globally, but it's because we are at a reduced productivity. So the rebound will come with a big bang, really, in terms of an upsurge in CO2 emissions. So in my view, and from where I sit, it's good to strategize right now on how to engage industry so that this period is not put to waste, even as they are in their low production levels. Is this the time now we need to move in as energy professionals and try and adjust the operations, try and look at how best we can incorporate more efficient measures as they rebound into full manufacturing post-COVID. I don't know how much time I have, but that's what I had prepared for you for today. And thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Sylvester, for that wonderful presentation. You were able to sort of summarize everything that Lisa has said and Mark has said and input something new in terms of how do we then bring all this into the manufacturing sector and commercial use. And so thank you very much for those sentiments and those wonderful points that you have pointed out. Well, we are very thankful for that. Now I can see that people are really engaging on the chat. I asked you to post your questions there, and I can see that people have been posting their questions. And so we will go into a short question and answer section here. As I don't know, I can have Moses read out the questions and post them to our speakers. You could just come on our speakers so that you're able to answer these questions. Moses, what questions are there on the chat?
Okay, the first question is from Mubarak, who poses a question to Mark. You said Kenya is not yet benefiting from the credit point, and yet it seems Kenya has already attained the sustainable development for energy, given all those megawatts produced from renewable energy sources.
Mark, are we? Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I find it interesting because when the global discussion, they mentioned Costa Rica, they mentioned a few European countries, but Kenya is never part of the discussion. And I think where Kenya does get mentioned occasionally is that we're in the top 5 in geothermal globally, which for an African, sub-Saharan African country is really a major achievement. But to me, what's very interesting is the mix: hydro, geothermal, wind, and increasingly solar. The mix that Kenya has achieved. I think this mix is going to alleviate the need for storage. We can use the hydro as the battery. The hydro can back up the solar, and the hydro can the solar can be used to produce power when the hydro is drying up. So Kenya hasn't achieved the successful. I think we need to blow our horn a little bit more. And I think Kenya needs to stand up and say, we've achieved 80%, whatever the figure is, green energy, and Kenya needs to say it can be done. Ethiopia is also pretty much 100% green as well. So the Kenya, Uganda as well. So Kenya, Uganda, and Ethiopia is an entire region where we've got 10,000 megawatts of green power, which is if you look at it regionally, it's demonstrating what can be done for a region. Anyway, I haven't answered your question fully, but I think Kenya needs to bang the drum and say, this is what can be done.
All right, thank you very much, Mark, for that. I think it's important for us energy professionals to really beat our drum about the gains that we have had with the green energy, and to have that go out to the world. We can have 2 more questions, and then the rest of the questions can be addressed in the next segment, which we are going into. So Moses, please pick 2 questions.
Yes.
That one can be addressed
Fantastic.
by Lisa and the other by Sylvester.
Great. I will hand that over to Ruth Carroll.
Okay, thank you, Moses. So we have a question from Sumaya.
Yeah.
To all panelists, how is energy efficiency supporting the government challenge of suppressed demand and low access rates? I'll ask Lisa to answer this kindly.
Oh, thanks. I'm not sure of the obviously what the Kenyan government is doing. So I know I looked at the questions as they were coming in, and somebody also asked another one about supporting energy efficiency. And I think if you if energy demand is a huge problem, obviously energy efficiency plays a big role in just flattening that demand curve, because part of the whole energy management program is not just about efficiency, it's also about managing your peaks. And I think it's very important that if you look at the sort of security of energy supply, you always have to look at managing the peaks, and that can be part of your energy management program. What I was going to mention on energy efficiency in South Africa, I don't know if you know, we've it's supposed to be June this year, but with the whole sort of lockdown and COVID, it's been delayed. But the carbon tax sort of came into effect. But now, to balance off carbon tax, there is also tax incentives. So if you do energy efficiency programs in South Africa, you can get a tax rebate, and it's 95 South African cents per kilowatt hour saved. And I think if if demand and efficiency is problematic, I think it's beneficial for the government to give incentives for energy efficiency. You know, it's easy to in a way incentivize solar and renewables, but I think it's more difficult with energy efficiency because you have to look at baselines, adjusted baselines, and we have a measurement and verification side to the whole program. So I think there's a lot of things that there's a lot of programs around that the government can be doing to support both demand-side management as well as energy efficiency programs. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, yes, that answers the question. Thank you very much, Lisa, for being able to tackle that with so much grace. We will now have one final question for Sylvester, and I'll choose the question from Abanas, and I'll ask Abanas to please unmute yourself and ask the question directly so that we see you. You're asking something about agriculture. Can we unmute Abanas?
Yes, kindly, Abanas, go ahead. You are unmuted. His computer does not have audio.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'll ask Ruth Carroll to please read out the question then. And Sylvester can answer it.
Okay. 1 minute as I try locate the question.
Okay, maybe I can go ahead and read it. It says,
Okay.
Kenya's economy is driven by agriculture. Most reports show serious post-harvest losses at the first mile of production due to lack of energy, and that's connection to the grid. Solar power is a good option, but cost of storage, battery is high. Are there any initiatives to bring down, thereby make this option affordable? Sylvester, over to you. What do you think about this question?
Great, that's a good question. Good in the sense that the statistics show that from farm to market or post-harvest losses is much higher than 50%. That means what we consume or the value that the farmer extracts from his farm is much less. Now, we picked this as a really a big problem. And then you look at our, what you call the National Climate Change Action Plan that was just recently signed into official government document. It has flagged smart agriculture as one of the areas of focus to try and respond to the national declared contribution to the carbon footprint reduction. So what are the technologies then that can help? Of course, looking at how the grid distribution in Kenya is today, means the agricultural areas are still not fully or adequately covered. So we need to really think around local energy sources or local energy resources that will play their rightful role in making sure that the preservation at farm level happens. We've seen like the milk sector introduce refrigerated containers that then are able to store milk or pasteurize milk at source, waiting for collection. Can this be extended to other agricultural produce? We've seen the flower sector, the horticultural sector, move right into the interior and establish refrigeration and preservation facilities right at the farm level. This will be the solution as we think of the big commercialization when now grid will be available. We've also seen the introduction of the mini grids, although to a small scale, but this is one of the solutions that promises to address farm level losses or post-harvest losses. So we may be at the beginning of a long journey but I think the vision is very clear on how this will be handled so that we reduce the post-harvest loss from the levels we have today and towards zero. You may not get zero, but at least we want to get there so that it has a cascading benefit across the value chain. The prices of raw materials will definitely come down, and then you'll be responding to the commercializing solar and small installations in the agricultural sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvester, for giving us a very comprehensive view of what is happening currently with the different people in the agriculture sector in terms of energy storage and energy generation. So I think we have a great view of that. We can have a few more questions. And here I'll ask, let me see who else has asked a question, and they can be unmuted. You can see a question posed by Amos Kipkemei. Could you please unmute Amos? And you could ask the question directly to Mark. Amos, where are you?
I think he's in the process of unmuting.
All right.
Yes, Amos, karibu.
Thanks. So my question to Mark was, many industries at the moment are focusing more on solar PV installation to cut on the energy cost. So my question was, is it time for these industries who utilizes a huge amount of steam to also think of installing solar thermal?
Okay. Over to you, Mark.
Right. I think that this is the answer to that question is that it was going to come to the cost. And the problem with solar and steam is that we have good technologies to convert solar energy to steam. However, is the energy going to be there when you need it? Is the steam going to be there when you need it? The great thing about gas and coal is that you can convert that energy to steam instantaneously. But if it's June and you need to dry tea, it's unlikely in the Mount Kenya area that you're going to have enough sun throughout the day to be drying the tea. So globally, we haven't seen a huge solar thermal success in solar thermal, and I think the reason is because storing the energy, and you can't easily or cheaply store it in batteries. So it's a good idea, and it could be used in a combination with another technology, but I don't see solar thermal being a major use in as much as I would love to see it. I don't see it happening because the technology is not available when it's needed, be it at night, be it on a cloudy day, be it in a cloudy period. So the issue is always going to be, is the solar energy available when it's needed, and quite often it's not.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. I think one of the things that you pointed out is the lack of consistency in terms of renewables and the need for storage for that to be more consistent. And I think that answers the question for Amos. There was a question here by Warren. Warren, could you unmute yourself and ask your question?
All right, great. Thanks for the opportunities, and it's been a really engaging session. So my question was, even as we celebrate green power generation, how do we match power demand so that the grid energy prices are attractive? And also, how can we encourage renewable energy generation that also factors in energy efficiency? Because renewable energy generation is more about bringing more power, making more power available. But then how do we make that the usage of power more energy efficient and also stimulate demand? I think this has also been reiterated by Sumaya. So I'll direct this to the panel, really. I would like to get your views on how do we balance encouraging generation while at the same time optimizing demand and energy efficiency.
Let me ask Lisa to, okay, you can see Sylvester has his hand up. You could go ahead, Sylvester.
Good. The question is how do we draw a balance between energy efficiency and abundance of generation? And this is the million-dollar question, because looking at where we come from as a country, we started off from a deficiency in supply or in generation that necessitated massive power rationing in early 2000. And so I think a policy decision was made to invest more into capacity. And we've seen Ethiopia do the same. We've seen a contrast to what South Africa did in trying to slow down capacity expansion. So it's just a matter of time, as we say, before you outstrip your capacity supply if you have excess generation. That is one. Number two is you look at the region, and I think the region is thinking in terms of integrating their grid. So you're looking at deep DRC, you're looking at Rwanda, you're looking at Tanzania, you're looking at Zambia, you're looking. So the region, if you look at it generally, it is not in adequacy situation. So with the integration, I don't think Kenya runs any risk of investing more into power generation into the future, because then you will have enough, one, to command a strong pricing policy regionally, and two, you can support the regional grid and sell to your neighbors. Power, our advantage as a country is that one, our resources are more or less renewable, and I think this year or last year we recorded 90+ energy mix, all from renewables. That means that then these thermal plants only come in for peaking. So with renewable, definitely we stand an advantage to have our costs under control throughout the season. And so we can be able to support the regional grid when it comes, and I know it is in the offing, that you can be able to support Uganda, Tanzania, and even South Africa power pool if the integration comes, and make this region really a destination of choice in investments. The other thing is how do we attain full reliability and stability? You can only attain full reliability and stability by having a strong system. And that's what I think the power players are trying to achieve by building or investing in the infrastructure to make it robust and strong, so that whoever comes here or whoever looks at the Kenyan story will see a stable and robust grid with enough capacity. Then now we can jump into the big manufacturing. We've not been able to attract those huge manufacturing because the grid is weak and the generation capacity is still low. What happens when we hit 30,000 megawatts? You will start seeing industries coming in demanding for 50 megawatts, 100 megawatts. We haven't crossed 50 megawatts yet as a single installation. What happens when we start hitting? So that is the way we should think. And of course, we cannot drop the ball on efficiency. We can't drop it, because efficiency is a cost, or inefficiency is a cost. And every carbon footprint on our products makes it uncompetitive. So our drive on energy efficiency, our drive on being more efficient or low carbon manufacturing will not stop just because we want to draw up or we want to drum up high demands and high consumption. I think that should not be dropped. I hope I've been able to respond to that.
Yes, I think you.
Can I add to that?
Yes, I actually wanted to ask
Yeah,
you to give us
thanks.
the South African perspective.
Yeah, not just a South African, I think it's a worldwide perspective, is people always have this impression that energy efficiency and energy generation are in competition, and they're not. And that's why I likened it to, if you were to analyze the water use in your building or in your plant, you would first check for leakage. And to me, energy inefficiency, as Sylvester said, energy inefficiency is a cost. So why would you let water pour out of a leaky pipe? You know, why would you let energy pour out of a leaky pipe? So you first look at your energy usage and optimize that. So the cost of running your business is optimized because of energy efficiency. Then you must look at renewable. Then you look at generation. Again, energy efficiency is using energy efficiently. It's not having energy. You know, it's not having a renewable. It's part of the whole package. And as you say, the more energy security you have, the bigger the opportunity is for growth within the country. And again, one of the things recognized is that in South Africa, the lack of energy security is not, it doesn't give investors confidence to come here, because they look at it and say, can you guarantee that I'm going to have energy? And if you can't say yes, they're not going to put money in the country. So Sylvester, you got a very good point where energy security is vital, and the ability to tap that energy. So don't use that energy and waste it. Have the energy efficiency, and then have the strong renewable generation.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for that. What I got from that is that energy efficiency equals energy security. And if we are not able to convince people that we have energy security, then we will lose out on our investors. And that's a great point there. Before we answer the rest of the questions, I can see a lot of questions directed at Sylvester. Before we do that, let's have a small poll. We need to have a little mental break. And so we'll have a poll, and I'll ask our technical support to please launch the poll so that we are able to.
Which poll number would you like me to launch?
Number 5. Poll number 5.
We have only 4. Okay, number 4.
Oh, all right.
Okay, poll number 4. Okay, thank you.
And there you go. You have about 30 seconds to answer. What do you see as the biggest challenge towards switching to renewable energy? Kindly answer the poll. We can see the answers coming in quick and fast. What do you see as the biggest challenge towards switching to renewable energy? Is it competition by non-renewable sources? Is it access to financing? Is it inadequate technical assessment? Is it balancing technology and risk? Or is it government regulations? All right.
Okay, the
polling
have
is
been ended.
Yes. Could you share the results, please? There we have it. So 38% of us think that access to financing is the biggest challenge towards switching to renewable energy. I think that is quite valid. And the rest of us, we have 29% who think government regulations are a hindrance to switching to renewables. Then we have another 17% who think balancing of the technology and the risk that comes with it is the challenge here. And then we have 13% of us who think that it is inadequate technical expertise and the technical assessment to see what available options are there. And that there shows that there's a gap for us to fill as energy professionals. And finally, the competition by non-renewable sources comes in at 4%. So thank you very much for sharing your opinion on the renewable energy here. We're glad to hear your thoughts on what is a hindrance to renewable energy and why we are not utilizing it as much as we should. And so we'll go back to answering our questions. And there was one particularly addressed to Sylvester here by Jesse Nyokabi. Jesse, could you please ask your question? If we could unmute Jesse.
Jesse, please accept unmute.
Are you there, Jesse? The reason we want to unmute is we want to interact with you, to see your face as you ask the question. Jesse, are you there?
She might have left.
All right, so let's have this question answered. Has KAM considered off-grid geothermal power for companies within geothermal developed fields? And that's a question to you, Sylvester. Setting examples with Osarian Development Company that is doing well in this line. Could you respond to this, Sylvester?
Fine, but I don't want really to speak on behalf of Osarian, but what I know, they are the pioneers in that area, and they are in the horticultural sector. And they took up the honors to buy steam and generate power from the steam and use the post generation for their greenhouse business. The regulations around geothermal steam is still a preserve of the government, because the priority is to generate power. But now that we have opened the geothermal zone, the Naivasha zone for industrial development, emerging issues are that we may have to commercialize steam for private industrial development. Now, how that comes up will depend on very many factors. One will be how the pricing structure will look like, what will be the tenor, so that what is the guarantee that that steam will always be there for, and all that. So those are things that are in the works, and for sure a policy will be out very soon to guide. I know already there is one special economic zone gazetted for development under a government arrangement. There is also another one being considered by a private entity, specifically KenGen. And that means that we are watching this space. KenGen has, of course, the advantage that they are able to do the drilling for themselves, so they'll own the wells. But what happens when the owner of the well has to sell the steam to a third party? Those are the details now we got to look at from a policy perspective and try to regulate the whole economy around geothermal scheme. So it may be too early to say, yes, let it be like this. But as time unfolds, these things will fall into place. I said Osarian may be enjoying because they were the pioneers in that area. But now is the time to open it up, and that regulation will soon be coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvester. And we are looking forward to having that policy come out so that we are very well guided on that. So I can see that Rabindra, one of our participants, would like to share his thoughts. Rabindra, if we could unmute Rabindra, is coming to us from the US of A. Welcome, Rabindra, to share your thoughts. Jumbo.
Good to see a lot of people here. My thoughts at this difficult time on energy optimization is for hospitality industry. This year is going to be a challenge just to survive. If they can just survive, then it's good enough for this year. As an engineer operating a hotel, it costs at least 5 to 6 million Canadian shillings or $50,000 to build a hotel. And at this difficult time, most of the hotels around the world are closed, 3 to 15% occupancy. So as an energy person, what we have to advise or can do is very challenging. For example, to run water, it's not a waste anymore because there are Legionella disease or the bacteria which has to be eliminated in hotels. And to maintain the rooms, to make sure that relative humidity is maintained, temperature are maintained, fresh air are pumped into the rooms or the hotel, is a big asset protection right now. So for my thoughts for all the energy managers or people who work on energy is to advise industries or hospitality industry especially, how to minimize their losses. I wish I get some questions from someone. I mean, is there any question for me that I can answer?
Thank you very much, Rabindra. I think you have been able to share something that the hospitality industry is very big in Kenya and in Africa as a whole. We really are dependent on it for our revenue, and so it hurts us that at the moment we are not able to direct revenue there. And for sure, we must look at how do we minimize the costs in the hospitality industry. We will keep asking people if you have any questions for Rabindra as well. You could direct them on the chat as well. And before we go any further, I know there are many questions there on the chat. I just want us to do a small exercise here. I want us to do a small exercise. Can you see my screen? Are you able to see my screen here?
No.
All right, it's just a moment. It's coming up. And right now you can see it.
Yes.
All right. So I would like you to please list down what you can see in this picture and to send your responses to Warren Ondanje. Please send your responses to him. What can you see? As many things as you can see, please send them to Warren and he'll be able to tally and tell us. Please do not send them to everyone. Ensure you private chat Warren so that we see who is very keen and paying attention. We have about 30 seconds to go. Just see this picture and what are the things that you can see in this picture? As many as you can see, please private chat Warren and send them to him. All right, 5 seconds to go. And 2 seconds, and time is up. All right. So that's it for that. And before, we can answer one last question as Warren tallies all the things that you have sent to him. So we will have one question that was directed to Sylvester as well. There was something about by Sumaya. Sumaya, maybe you could ask this question about sustainability. If we could unmute Sumaya.
Hi, thank you, Lynette, and nice to be listening, to this very, engaging session that you guys have hosted. Sylvester, a pleasure to be meeting you. I'm just curious, how is CAM engaging with other, manufacturing associations in the region, and also just, sharing your sustainability, path that, CAM has decided to embark, i.e., your energy efficiency initiatives, any of, the renewable energy initiatives that CAM has taken on. How are you sharing that, for argument's sake, with, the Uganda Manufacturing Association? I'm sure there's a Tanzania Manufacturing Association. How are you sharing, your journey, with your peers in the region?
What do you say?
Thank you, Sumaya. And I'm sure from your question, I can pick that you are aware, or you have some idea on what KM is doing. And one of our, when we set off on this journey on energy efficiency, one of our challenge was financing and finance facility or credit facility. So as we build up the data on the potential and on the how it can be done, we convinced, or we got into a collaboration, working collaboration with AFD, the French Development Agency, that agreed to extend a credit line through local banks in Kenya. The first phase proved very successful, and so the second phase, it was deemed fit to try and stretch beyond the borders of Kenya. So we had a discussion, of course, with UMA, the Uganda Manufacturing Association, and CTI, the Confederation of Tanzania Industries. And through them, we play the role of, we advise on and collaborate on a few areas, especially deepening the structures around financing for energy efficiency and renewable energy programs. And it has worked so well that I think to date we've been able to disburse to the tune of $70 or $80 million in Kenya, and Uganda has taken off. I don't have the figures for Uganda, or I don't want to report here. Tanzania also, it's taken off. Despite the slow takeoff, I think with time it has gained traction, and we are looking at who building on the success stories of this program on how we can attract more commercial or interested parties to support the credit lines. One thing we note, and I think this may be of interest to all the people present in this conference today, webinar today, that by and large, renewable energy projects or energy efficiency projects, to start with, are not well understood by local banks. And this I'm talking in terms of with respect to East Africa. So there had to be a whole range of training program to sensitize, to transfer knowledge and make them understand how these renewable energy and energy efficiency projects work. Number two, there were not as many as established energy service companies to take up the risks. And that means that the risk is taken by the financier and partly by the project sponsor. In this case, the industry itself. So in the absence of energy service companies, popularly called ESCOs, it means that the risk is shared. So our first challenge was how do we then trade off the risk implications? And I think this is where our partners came in handy and bought off some risks. And that helped in bringing down the actual cost of capital and then accelerating the uptake. So it is a new journey. I think we need to convince more partners to come on board and scale it up, because we've seen the market evolve, where now people are coming in privately and taking on projects, full financing, and then entering into PPA or lease to own arrangements without going through the regulatory arrangement, local regulatory arrangement. So it needs to be regulated for sure, but the faster it moves, the better. But the local finance houses must buy into it so that then we can scale it up. So in terms of sharing our experience with the regional partners, it's working very well. And we look at the future with a lot of enthusiasm and optimism that we shall work together on this program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvester, for that response. I think we now have a very good feel of what KAM is doing, and that we need to be able to partner together to come up with this sustainability model. And so we have some little time left, and we will ask that we pose these questions to question and answer section, and we move on to our next wonderful segment, which is one final poll. I'd like us to do one final poll before we can do a summary of our conversation. Can we have a final poll, Moses? There you go. In your opinion, which two renewable energy sources have the highest potential in Africa? Please give us your views. What are your views on this? Can see the answers coming in hot. Keep them coming. All right. Do you have the poll responses? Can
Absolutely. Okay.
And there you have it. Wow, that is just a landslide right there. The highest potential, according to you, is solar with 100%. All of you think that solar energy has the greatest potential. And then we have, secondly, geothermal at 30%, hydroelectric at 27%, wind at 16%, and biomass at 11%. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on this. As you can see, Mark, a lot of people agree with you that solar has a lot of potential as a renewable energy source. And so you have your work cut out for you and for every other person who's looking to get into solar energy. All right. We would like now to come to the end. We just want to thank all of you for coming to this wonderful webinar. some of the thoughts that have been shared are on energy efficiency. We have seen that as we get back into the recovery mode, we will see an upsurge for energy demand, and we must look at how to ensure that as we recover economically, we're able to recover in a green way. And so thank you very much, Lisa, for giving us such wonderful insights into how to do that. And then Mark, you were able to show us how the renewable sector is doing in Kenya and what opportunities are there for us to take up. And so anyone who had their ear out can see what opportunities are there to take up. And thank you very much for sharing those thoughts with us, Mark. And Sylvester, what a powerful presentation you gave us on how to integrate all these energy sources into one, how we are able to ensure that the policies are working for us, and that the manufacturing industry and the commercial industry are working together to ensure that we are using energy in a great way. So thank you very much, Sylvester, for doing that. We will have a report out on all these thoughts and your thoughts, and we will put it out and send it out to your emails once we have put it together. We'll also put together the video. As you can see, we are recording this session. And so once it's ready and we've edited, we'll send it out to you and to every other person who was able to register. And I'm sure you're waiting to see who was the winner of our exercise today. You're eagerly waiting to see who the winner is. But before we tell you who the winner is, let's tell you what the winner is walking away with. And the winner of today's exercise gets to walk away. As you heard, there's an author in the house. Mark is an author. And so the World Energy Day Committee will be sponsoring a book from Mark Hankins himself. And so you will walk away with a book from Mark on the solar electric systems for Africa, which is his wonderful book that he has authored. And so the World Energy Day Committee will be sponsoring this book from Mark. And do we have the results of who is walking away with this book of ours? Warren, over to you.
Great, thanks, Lynette. Well, I must say it was a little tight. Everyone was really attentive, but there's only really one winner. And I don't know, maybe he could have seen this image before, but there was an overwhelming number of responses from that particular person. And the winner happens to be Nyagaka Charles. So Charles gave us close to 10 responses about what you could see in the photo. So that was well noticed. Thanks.
Well done, Nyagaka Charles. Please send us how we can contact you, your contact details and your location. Please send that to Warren so that we are able to deliver the book to you. And thank you very much. Everyone who participated, I'm sure you are anticipating to be a winner. And finally, we will now have a vote of thanks from the CEO of eInnovators, Chris Mbori. Please give us a final vote of thanks before we can release everyone to go on with the rest of their day.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, first of all, you can hear me clearly?
Yes.
Oh, great. So, Ms. Lynette, our chair, distinguished speakers, that is Lisa, Mark, and Sylvester, all our valued guests, everyone who has participated. I just want to give a hearty vote of thanks to everyone, for sparing your time to attend to this. We had more than 55 participants, and I can see most of us are stuck onto this up to this very end. Each of our speakers, you gave us learned a lot personally from Lisa, on how to prioritize energy investments. Where do you start with, instead of first starting from generation, maybe we can think about fixing the leak as a priority. I think that was very, very good. From obviously Mark Hankins, learned a lot about what is happening in the renewable energy space, not only in Kenya but also across the world, and how these trends are going to affect the future, especially after COVID. And not forgetting a great mind from Sylvester, a lot of insights of how we can plug into the commercial and industrial space, and especially also coming in with the new times. So I just want to thank our speakers also for just coming in, and everyone else from across the world, from all the way from the US. We have participants from South Africa, from Morocco, and also a lot of us from neighboring countries like Uganda, and most of us from Kenya. Thank you very much for participating in this. I also want to thank Nyagaka for 10 responses. I probably only saw 2 or 3. I don't know how he saw 10. Maybe I should see you later after this. Also for participating on the polls, I think that is very good. Gives us a lot of insights on where the trends are going. And I think we've also just learned a lot that is really a great also opportunity in solar. I've also been holding the same view as to how the space is evolving. So thank you very much for that. So I'd also want to thank Lynette. I think this has been a gracious way to handle this event, and really been engageful, and we've not seen how the 2 hours have gone. So thank you very much for the great moderation. And the behind the scene team, we have the team from Innovators, the team from Maria. I think we have the team from AWE Initiative that have always been helping, the team from Life Skills. These people have done a lot of work behind the scenes to make this a success. I would want to really, really thank each and every one of you. I know I can't thank everyone individually, but once again, to just say thank you very much for being part of this and being part of us today. And stay safe, stay blessed, and have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.